That's right, it's cocktail blog number 10. Who'd have thought that I could keep this up this long? Today I went to see the Big Daddy Sand Dune, which is inside the Sossusvlei National Park. It's in a complex of a lot of great big dunes, and I'll show you a few photos of it that I took. Of course, I took way too many. Ultimately, at some point, one big pile of sand looks like another big pile of sand, but there are a lot of interesting photos there. I'm going to do a separate video on that trip, so I'll just put a couple here. Well, I had to move. I had to move out of guest cottage 6 into guest cottage 10. The 2 days I had a reprieve where there were no guests here are over. And we've got guests coming in tonight and tomorrow. We've got a couple where they have trouble walking. And guest cottage 6 is right next to the lodge, so which was very convenient for me because it's right down from the observatory. But they asked if I couldn't move to guest cottage 10, and of course I said fine. And it's exactly the same. I mean, exactly the same. The liquor is in the same order and all the same stuff in the refrigerator. It's unbelievably the same. But as I understand it, we've got a lot more people coming in the next couple of days. So back to the grind of amateur astronomy. Last night's astrophotography was boring. And I got to tell you, boring is good. I powered up the telescope and the mount, told it to go find the target. It more or less went to that area of the sky. I did something called plate solving, and this just kills me that they can do this. It takes a picture of the part of the sky that it's pointed in and then compares that to some reference images that are stored on the hard drive and finds out exactly where it's pointed in the sky. It doesn't know how the camera's turned or anything like that. It just goes through and compares it to these images, and then it knows exactly where it is pointed in the sky. And then after that, you say, okay, go center the target, and it goes exactly where it was the last time you finished. I was trying to get the red, green, and blue of the false comet thing that's up there in Scorpio, which is fun. And it centered it up, and it found focus perfectly well. And it shot off 20 blues, and then it shot off 20 reds, and then it shot off 20 greens, and they were all exactly the same. There's a graph that shows you how in focus each one of them is, and it was straight across. And then there was the guiding graph, which shows you how much the telescope is varying its position as it tries to track the object in the sky. And that was all like way, way, way below nominal. And well, I love boring because when you go to process your images later, there's no surprises. So there were no rejected frames. There was nothing that was wacky. PixInsight, the program I used to put all the images together into a master hydrogen, red, blue, and green. It just says no trouble. You end up with these master things and you can just go straight from point A to point B. And I love boring. I got some new targets. My friend David Dalkey, hi David, in Hilton Head said, hey, why don't you call Dylan O'Donnell? So I hit him up on Instagram. And Dylan's a famous YouTuber and really talented astrophotographer in the Southern Hemisphere. He lives in Byron Bay, Australia, which is the easternmost observatory in all of Australia. And he was kind enough to write back right away. Dylan's an interesting guy. Aside from being really talented astrophotographer, he closes every one of his videos with the catchphrase, everything is meaningless and we're all going to die. Well, he's cheery. But he does have another talent. He can make astrophotography funny, and that is actually quite a talent. So anyway, he said, yeah, go through my gallery and pick a bunch of targets there. He suggested perhaps the Helix Nebula, which I will try. I have a gigantic list of targets, really cool targets too, things I wasn't thinking of at all, like the Statue of Liberty Nebula. Looking forward to that. It's about time to head in for dinner. Here's a few more images for the trip into Big Daddy. By the way, my guide, who was driving the Land Rover, his name is Thank You. And I told him, well, if you ever want to have chaos in the household, when you have kids, name one of your children, You're Welcome. And he goes, oh, I've got you one better. My dad named my half-brother and half-sister Stand Up and Sit Down. And he says, I'm not kidding. So I guess Perhaps his dad was a big fan of Frank Zappa because Frank Zappa named his kids Moon Unit, Dweezil, Amit, and Diva. Well, that's it for cocktail blog number 10. Carpe Noctem. Whoa, how about that? You think it was windy here today? How long has that been like that? Don't even think about it.